A lot of people want to get bigger and a lot of people want to get stronger. And I think a lot of people want to do both at the same time. So today we're going to be talking about something very important. You could call it power building, okay, which is essentially the concept of training your strength and getting stronger at the same time that you're increasing the size of your muscles, right? And there's obviously a symbiotic relationship there between muscle size and strength. But you have a lot of people on both sides of the aisle who are very much only strength matters and only size matters. And then as usual, I'm somewhere in the middle. So today what I'm going to talk about is my personal experience with using strength building techniques in a bodybuilding style program. And I'm going to give you 2 techniques today that you're going to be able to drop them right into your training. Okay, so you can, by the end of this video, you can try both of these methods out. I think it's important to try out a lot of different methods because you never know when something's going to work for you. Not everything works for everybody, but it's important to try new things and until you find something that works for you. So today in this video, we're going to talk about a couple things. We're going to talk about common issues that I see. I'm going to talk about the progress vectors. They're going to help you in your lifting journey. And then we're going to go through the 2 methods, method 1 and method 2. So, ladies and gentlemen, grab your notebook. The professor is here. Class is in session. Obviously, I made this PowerPoint just for you. So let's begin. Okay, before we get too far, I want to go through the credentials, right? Who are you, Baldy? Okay, I have been working out for about 15 years. Okay, so I have about 15 years of trial and error experience. Okay, here's my credentials right here. Right there. That's all you need to know. Okay? All right. So, and here's why I think that's important, right? Because you don't want to just, you don't want to take information in from somebody who hasn't tried it, right? This is not just some chat GPT nonsense, okay? This is things that I've done and spent years trying out, okay? So these are things that actually worked for me. And I think that I'm a pretty good sample for the average person because you see a lot of things on Instagram where it's like, what are the normal strength benchmarks for people, and they're like, oh, dudes should be able to deadlift 500 pounds by the time they're 14. They should be able to bench 405 by the time they're 7. Okay, that's not me. All right, it took me 5 years to bench 225 for the first time, and then another 8 years after that to bench 305 or 315. Sorry, 3 plates. So this is not right. I'm not like some like football high school star. Okay, I was a scrawny 125 pound kid, and I've just been grinding since then to try to not be skinny. Okay, so the problem is when I'm in the gym, I see this a lot. See a lot of younger guys going there, and they're trying to get their bench up, obviously. They're trying to hit 185 for the first time. They're trying to hit 225 for the first time. And I see them come in, and it's like, a couple times a week, they're all crowding around the bench, and, they're just trying to 1 rep max, which is great, right? I love the energy. That's awesome. Glad they're in the gym. Glad they're working out. Glad they're, they're trying that. It's incredible. But, I always go and try to tell them, boys, look, there's some smarter ways we can go about this, okay? So, how can we get that bench press up? Okay, how can we get that deadlift up, that squat up? So that's one problem. I see guys come in and they just try out of the blue nowhere. They'll just a couple times a week they'll try to come in and try to 1 rep max. And then as far as their training protocol goes, they have no plan at all, or they change their plan too frequently. Okay, so if you change up your entire split every couple weeks, you are not giving your body anywhere close to the amount of time to need to progress, right? You need to practice the practicing, okay? Once you get in the groove of working out, okay, then you can start to, see those benefits build up over time, right? Because you get better at doing that particular exercise. Okay, and then the other big problem I see is not working consistently in a variety of rep ranges correctly, and that's really going to be the point of today's video, is covering how to do it correctly. Okay, so say a variety of rep ranges. They're normally just doing 3x10, and then they come in, time to 1 rep max. All right, so that's, you can do that, but you're not going to really see ton of strength progress that way. You're really just going to be checking to see how much you can lift, if that makes sense. Okay, so the importance of consistency. Earlier in the video, I mentioned the 3 vectors for progress. Okay, so each lift or movement pattern or major compound lift or whatever you want to call it, in my opinion, this is my opinion, has 3 vectors for progress that I want you to think about. Okay, so these are things to keep in the back of your mind. So each lift has the technical proficiency of the lift. What I'm talking about there is the actual skill at doing the technique correctly. Okay, you increase your technical proficiency by practicing correct technique. All I'm talking about is learning how to do the movement correctly, right? Learning how to do the squat, learning how to do the bench press. Okay, obviously somebody who's been bench pressing for 15 years, like me, it's going to be a little bit different than somebody who's been bench pressing for like 1 year, right? So like if I come over, if somebody tells me something like, yeah, so bring the bar down, set it a little, when it comes down, just let it rest on your sternum and kind of like, help your, pick your sternum up with your back just to arch a little bit, kind of help you get some momentum out of the hole, right? It's going to be easier for me to do like to kind of on the fly, be like, okay, yeah, I'll try that out, than somebody hasn't been bench pressing that long, who's just worried about trying to get the weight up, okay? So the thing is, over time, just consistently, you're going to build that up by just doing the movement correctly, okay? Making sure your chest is up, practicing correct form. I'm not going to go too far into that, but I hope you get it. Okay, then there's the skill level at a given rep range, okay? And what I want you to realize is, if you haven't figured this out already, the skill of like doing a 12 rep max, or like doing 12 high reps, is a completely different skill set from doing a 1 rep max, okay? Like the actual, everything, like the your muscle recruitment and your central nervous system, everything, like it's completely different. It's not just 1/12 of the reps, like a 1 rep max compared to doing a 12 rep max. It's just a completely different skill set, okay? And each one you can practice to get better. Like you can get better at doing 1 rep maxes, or you can get better at doing sets of 12, okay? And everything in between as well. So I want you to think about, when you're kind of thinking about your programming and stuff, all I want you to remember is that 1 rep maxes, 3 rep maxes, 5 reps, that is a skill set in itself. And that skill set of doing 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 reps, that can be trained and improved. Okay, so that's your second vector for progress. And then your third vector of progress is obviously strength, increases in physical strength. Okay, so you increase your physical strength by pushing yourself to a high level of intensity and then recovering properly with nutrition and sleep. Okay, so now we have the trifecta here, the triangle of progress, the triangle of progressive overload. You increase your technical proficiency, your skill level at a given rep range, and then your physical strength. And that is going to drive you forward, okay? Progress. Okay, so now that you have that information, right? So you're armed with that information. You got to, like I said, you got to make sure nutrition, sleep, recovery. Tracking your workouts is going to be really important here, okay, as you continue forward. It's just you're going to have a really hard time progressive overloading without tracking your workouts. Now, I'm not going to say it's a necessity because you absolutely can make gains without tracking your workouts, but I would say just, buy a crappy little notebook, give it a try. I think it'll help you. Okay, so now we're going to get into the 2 methods of implementing strength practices or strength techniques into your everyday workout so that you can increase your strength and continue to progress. So the first method that I really like is called the 12-8-3, right? So this is just your sets. You're not doing 3 by 10. You're doing 3 sets of your major lift, right? Your first set is going to be a 12. Second set is going to be an 8. And your third set is going to be a 3. Okay, so it's going to be you're trying to push, either failure or very close to failure, very hard sets, right? So it's not just like your third set isn't just 3 easy reps. You're pyramiding up your weight as you do your next set. So that third set, that's hard. It's a grinder. It's a hard 3. And the thing is, this is why tracking is so important, because if you do, let's say bench press, right? So you do 12, you're trying to go for 12-8-3, but you don't add enough weight. So on that third set, you do 12-8-6. You say, okay, all right, well, noted. Next time, I'm going to add a little more weight to that third one, right? So now you can see where the tracking is kind of important there. In my opinion, I would give at least 2-minute rest periods, except for, give your 2-minute rest period in between the 12 and the 8. But before you go to a 3, I would say probably, 2.5 to 3 minutes rest. Again, a rest period in between sets. That's another thing. I didn't track them for years. After I started tracking my rest periods in between sets, it was like a couple years ago, I really think that helped. Okay, I think that's a big thing, because I always try to get into it too soon, and then, I'm just gassed. And so the reason I like this technique is because it's, you can simultaneously do hypertrophy and strength at the same time. And I feel like it helps keep your strength levels up. It's just something I really liked. Okay, I think it worked for me. And I really don't need another reason other than that to say that I think it was great. Okay, second technique that I really like is a little bit more of a traditional strength building practice. And I will say with both of these techniques, you can take this, you really only need to apply these rep schemes to your main lifts. Let me go back here real quick. If you see here, I still have 3 accessory lifts on here for 12-ish reps at 3 sets. You're just applying the 12-8-3 method to your main lifts. Okay, it's not like everything you do has to be 12-8-3. Okay, isolations, in my opinion, I still like higher reps on the isolations. Okay, so this is just for your main lift, right? You go in and you do squats, 12-8-3. Then you go do 3 sets of 12 on the leg curls, 3 sets of 12 on leg extensions. You get it, okay? Okay, so the second method, that's, like I said, typically it's going to be like a more traditional strength building, strength programming style. So what you're going to be doing is starting at 8 reps, and each week you're going to drop your number of reps down by 1, okay? So on week 1, you're going to do 3 sets of 8 reps, right? In week 2, you're going to do 3 sets of 7 reps. Week 3, 3 sets of 6 sets. And again, this one is a lot more tracking intensive. I think you can do the 12-8-3 if you really just do not want to track because you don't care. I think it's a lot easier to do the 12-8-3 without tracking than it is this, because this is a little bit more complicated and tricky. Okay, so like it shows, you just go down each week, you just drop it down. Okay, just drop it down by 1 set, or 1 rep, so that by that 8th week, now you're doing 3 sets of 1. Okay, and those should all look like each set is going to have the same amount of weight. Ideally, you want to have them be 3 sets of the same weight for those rep ranges, and that third set should be pretty hard. Like it should feel like a grinder. Like the first set of whatever, 4 or 3 or 2, the first set should feel pretty good. And then the second set, okay, that one was kind of hard. And then that third set, it should be like, okay, I definitely had to push on that one. So that's kind of general how it should feel, right? And then same thing, you're not applying this strategy to every single one of your lifts. You're just applying it to your main lift of your exercise, right? So just applying it to your squat or your deadlift, your bench or your overhead press, etc. And then you can go back and do the same thing with your accessory movements, because remember, this is all about incorporating strength building practices into a bodybuilding-esque routine. Okay? And so again, this is more advanced lifters. You may have to reduce your volume. Typically, the more it's going to sound kind of counterintuitive, but the newer you are, you can typically handle a little bit more volume. And the reason is because you are not good enough at pushing your central nervous system all the way up. You don't have as much, the ability to recruit as much muscle fiber, and so a like a very high level deadlifter doing a 1 rep max, they're probably going to be toast for, a week or more, just doing one. But somebody who's kind of new, somebody who's kind of newer to the gym, they could probably do a 1 rep max and then, a couple days later do another one. Okay. Because they're just not as good at pushing their body that far. Okay. It's not going to do as much damage to themselves. Okay. So like I said, with the, having to reduce volume, just kind of be cognizant of your recovery in this process. Anytime, one thing I will say about nutrition is anytime you're pushing into these lower rep ranges and you're training more intensely, you really need to pay attention to your dieting and your recovery. Okay. You need to make sure that you're properly recovering, or like you're going to feel it. Okay. I know for me personally, like if I went in and, had like a really hard set, I've done like a couple sets of, like multiple sets of threes, like 3 really hard threes. If I don't eat a lot that day, and then get my rest in, I'm going to feel it. Okay. I'm going to be hurting for a few days. Okay. So that is pretty much it. That's all I got for you guys. Like I said, I hope you can take these techniques, give them a try, try it out for a few weeks, and hopefully it helps you out. So hope to see you guys in the next video. Thanks for coming by.